Good morning and welcome back to Property Let's Talk, your go-to podcast for everything property, investments, lettings and management related. And today I'm joined here in the studio by none other than Matty Alder. Matty is an absolute legend in the property scene here in the Northeast. He's been involved in a multitude of different property ventures, from having a really successful letting agency. He's one of the most well-known deal packages in our area at the moment. Offering training for investors, deal packages as well, and has recently become a director of town and country property auctions. So a vast range of kind of experience from Matty here, and he is really truly a legend in the game. So looking forward to hearing his story. So Matty, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today. And it'd be good to start off just with a bit of an intro to your journey so far and kind of what brought you to where you are today, really.
Yeah, I mean, big smile on my face after that introduction, Liam. That's very kind of you, mate. I didn't pay Liam to say that, guys.
He did. I'll show you the invoice.
Yeah, send the invoice later. So a bit of an introduction from me, I guess. If we go back to what I was doing before property, I qualified as an accountant, but I just wasn't enjoying that at all. I've always had something in me that was a little bit entrepreneurial.
Okay.
And although accountancy taught me very important business skills, it didn't scratch the itch of being an entrepreneur or a business owner.
Yeah, of course.
And so when COVID come around and I got a couple of weeks paid leave, I heard something online saying, like, look, if you were ever going to start your business and you don't use this time to do it, then you're missing a trick. And I'd been looking into property. I think I'd probably seen some property content online, the stuff that goes around. And I thought, yeah, that makes total sense, Let me just dive into it. So I've written an email to my employer, like, I'm not going back.
Oh, wow. So you just took the plunge?
You just took the plunge, yeah.
I'm
going all in with it. And so that's how it started.
And clearly it worked. Clearly it's paid off because the position you're in today. So... and COVID was a scary time for a lot of people, wasn't it? There was a lot of question marks around people's futures, job sustainability, that sort of thing. So what a time to take the plunge.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of property, the market and stuff, I don't really know much else, If that was a hard time to get involved, that sort of played into my favour, if that makes sense, because I just jumped all in with it. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely hard, so I wanted to start a business. I wanted to be in property. So my first deal that I'd done was actually a flip. And I documented that flip online. So I had no intention of building a letting agency or building a sourcing business.
It was just do some flips, make some cash.
So I'd done the flip and documented it online. And people then started asking, can you do that for me? So I was like, well, I can charge for sourcing a property. I've got a team to do the renovations. I can charge for that, and then I could possibly manage it on the back end. This is genius.
It's a no-brainer, absolutely. Yeah, it's license to print money.
Yeah, and it's no risk, because I was doing it with investors' cash, and then I could say, well, because to be a full-time property investor and just flip properties would be so difficult.
It's peaks and troughs, isn't it, I suppose?
Exactly.
It's kind of, you get a lump of cash in there from that sale, then it's reinvested in the next one, and where does that cash flow come from?
Exactly.
To keep you going?
So that's where I saw the cash flow from the trading businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
And then it worked well.
Brilliant. So it was kind of starting off initially looking for your own stuff, fell into deal packaging, which then kind of fell you into letting agency off the back of it.
That's right, yeah.
Brilliant. And obviously the letting agency you built was a fair size agency. You had a number of how many properties do you have under management in the end?
So we sold it at around 200 properties under management. Yeah.
How long did it take you to get to that?
Probably 3-ish years.
That's amazing. I mean, that's kind of we've been going 10 years with Sillars, and before our recent acquisition, we'd only just got to that number. So that's some achievement.
Yeah.
Was that predominantly from the sourcing then and bringing them in that way, or how did you get to that number so quickly?
It was a huge. I want to know. Yeah, I mean, it was a huge learning curve, to be honest, because it was the first time I'd been a business owner, so I was doing that by myself. It was the first time I'd hired staff. So I probably sourced the first, say, 20, 25 properties. And then but I was taking on the management as well, and I was doing the project management. So I was literally doing everything at that point. So then I hired my first member of staff. And then that took my time away from the sourcing side of things because I was like training the staff and
of course dealing with the team.
So, and then I sort of thought, then I'd done when we got to about 60 properties, I then done the first acquisition, which then doubled us in size.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, it was tough. I mean, it sounds great, you know, getting up to 200 properties in 3 years, but
it's
it
not
was
an easy
such a
ride.
difficult business, and I had so many challenges, to be honest. Yeah, it's tough.
I think there's a lot of intricacies, isn't there, with lettings and management, and there's a lot of bits of legislation and minutiae detail that you've got to be on top of, and it can run you off down a rabbit hole. No 2 days are the same. That's the problem, isn't it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I've got some funny stories with the letting. So when I when I took someone on, he was doing a property inspection for me, and he come back to the office and he showed me the picture, like the condition of the property, and the tenant who was there, she let her dog shit in the bedroom.
Wow, lovely, lovely, yeah.
I was like, and we were just having such we were saying like, so Matty, not me, but the guy who was working for me, he was called Matty as well, and
But that was confusing.
yeah, he was he said to the tenant like, look, this is going to the landlord. Do you want to clean it up?
Yeah.
And she was just like, no. So
Wow,
that's the sort, and like literally, that is the sort of shit like you're dealing with as a letting agent. Like you're trying to look after this landlord's property.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to do well for the tenant.
Of course,
and like
they're just not interested.
The tenant's
sometimes.
not bothered.
Yeah.
And then you're getting it off the neck from the landlord because there's shit in his house. You know?
How do you politely tell someone to pick the shit up from the bedroom? It's difficult to do, isn't it? It's so tricky.
This was definitely at the back end of my, because towards, you know, although we did sell it and I was, you know, really happy with the sale for what we achieved and stuff like that, it ultimately come around because I was just burnt out with it all. Like stuff like that. It's like, you know, that just really burnt me out.
It's draining.
So, I mean, we were just laughing at it at that point. It's like, what more can we do? Because we felt like we were just getting it from every angle.
And that's
you know?
it. And I think you've got to be a certain makeup to be able to deal with lettings consistently. And I'm at the point now where I'm kind of pulling myself back a little bit from that day-to-day side of things, and the team are dealing with it. But yeah, I've got some horror stories myself, and we could sit and probably talk horror stories from lettings all day, to be fair. It's one of those games. But you're right, you do get it from all angles, and unfortunately as the agent, you're the middle person, aren't you? And you deal with everyone's problems and get the grief from all sides.
I remember when we so it must have been sort of my first year into it. I maybe got it up to a size, and then the winter came round, and I was dealing with like mold and condensation for the first time on like scale. So it was like 30, 40 properties were coming in with problems, and like then they're reporting it to the council and stuff like that, and it was really difficult.
And the end of the day, the solution is open a window, ventilate, and turn your tumble dryer off, or take it off, or stop drying washing inside, that sort of thing. It's an ongoing problem, isn't it? To be fair, dealing with mold and
that business
condensation.
was such a huge learning curve for me.
And I think if you're going to be doing anything with property from that point onwards, doing the lettings and management is a massive eye opener, and you learn a lot from it, don't you? And it's a really good foundation. For all other. Angles.
So my rule with that is stay away from it, stay far away.
Absolutely.
Leave it to the professionals, literally.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we say to landlords all the time. If you're looking for if you're wanting to let a property out, don't try and do it yourself, because there's so much that can bite you, so much that can go wrong. And that's kind of where someone like us come into play, just for the record. But yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm intrigued in, mate, obviously you've established yourself as one of the go-to people for Teesside, really, for anything kind of property-related, deal packaging, that sort of thing. So how was it that you established yourself so well in the Teesside area? Was it just through that consistency and consistently doing the same thing, or was there any top tips you could give to someone looking to establish themselves in an area? Yeah,
that's a good question. I think, so from the very start of my journey, I had to figure out how I was going to get clients to pay me money. Because I was, you know, that's the, you know, that's what it boils down to.
That's what the business is about.
That's what business is about.
It's about making money. So
obviously, I was starting from a cold start. You know, I had nothing in place already. Where no organic growth. So my number one thing to do was to do social media. And do videos and get out your comfort zone with that. So. Yeah, still to this day, I'm big on social media in terms of how where I see it in the level of importance to running a business or the day-to-day.
And I think social media is one of those things that's at the top of the importance for, especially on your marketing side of things. It should be one of the main pillars of your marketing, really, isn't it? It's,
yeah, definitely. Just to add to that as well, Liam, I would just some good. So James Sinclair on YouTube is a really good marketer. I read a book called Epic Content Marketing, which probably set the foundations really, because I spoke about this on another podcast. So Epic Content Marketing basically tells you that no one's bothered about you.
Yeah,
they're only bothered about themselves.
Yeah.
So don't put a piece of content out and say how great you are or how great your services are.
Yeah.
Focus on
what's in it for them.
Yeah, what's in it for them. So talk about property wise, it would be talking about the yield, the return on investment, stuff that the investor or the client is actually bothered about, not how good you are.
That's it. I mean, we often say to our team when we're doing content, stop weeing all over the customer, because the stand there, we do this, we do that, we do that. It's not about us. It's not about what we're doing. It's about what's in it for them, what's in it for the customer. So and just as well with the marketing side of things, that we were speaking about this before we got on to here, but understand how to write copy as well. Your hooks, your values, your value section, and then your call to action as well, because understanding the psychology behind copywriting will make you a much better marketer as well. Yeah. So get yourself out your comfort zone, understand copy and psychology, and you'll have a good chance of getting some clients. Yeah. No, absolutely. Completely agree, mate. Completely agree. So in terms of kind of locations for you then, so I know Teesside was a big area you focused on. I know you did a lot in County Durham as well. What was kind of, or what is the reason, or what's the opportunity you see in those areas? Why Teesside, why County Durham? What's the opportunity there?
Yeah, so I think we're quite fortunate really, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
From where we live. And,
every other house is a deal in some way, shape or form, isn't it, if you know how to position it?
Yeah, so the very first flip that I'd done was in Darlington, actually.
Oh, wow, okay.
It was... So as you're coming in from Darlington, if you're coming into Darlington from the A66, you can turn left to go like past the big train, or you can go straight on.
Yeah.
I can't remember what's that.
Is that where Nation Road coming past the rugby stadium?
No, so I can't think what it's called now. But anyway, it was in Darlington, and and I think we're quite lucky, aren't we, in terms of naturally the yields are really attractive to southern investors. But I don't think I knew that at the time when I did my first flip.
Yeah.
I stacked it up, and we made about
money to make.
Yeah, there was about 20 grand to be made profit. So the way I raised that money as well, that's a bit of a funny story. So I actually raised it from family members, but the way I done it is I persuaded them to sell the house.
Right, okay.
So my dad had just paid off his mortgage, and on that very same month, I persuaded him, so he'd been paying off his mortgage for 25 years.
Built this, all this money in to pay the mortgage off and all this.
So he's debt free at this point, and then I managed to convince him to sell his house. And what we done was we sold his house. We put 50% into a deposit on a bigger house to keep my mum happy, because she wants the bigger house. Yeah. But then rather than my dad taking on a bigger mortgage, what we done was we done a couple of flips, got some buy-to-lets, and structured that portfolio.
So that money to pay for the rest.
So ultimately, we got him. He's mortgage free on a bigger property now, so that worked out really well.
So it worked out well in the end.
Yes, yeah.
I thought you were going to say, persuade the family member to sell the house and stuck them in a caravan on the drive or something. At least it paid off in the end.
No, it did. Yeah, but I think there's a good lesson in that is being able to sell your vision.
Yeah, and that's it. It's about vision, isn't it? And looking at the wider picture, the bigger picture, and what's going to happen in the future. And I think, it takes a lot for someone to be able to do that. Look and go, by this one sale, we can do X, Y, Z, get you your bigger home and still be mortgage free. You're still in the same situation.
Exactly, because my dad is he's very conservative, right? So he's not the type of person to just, and not many people are, just be like, yeah, whatever, But he understood. I put a proper business plan together.
Perfect.
I really knew it was going to work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't just like pie in the sky stuff.
It wasn't. Yeah, sell this. We'll have some money. We might.
Exactly that. Yeah, there was a proper plan together, and I think when you're looking to raise investment, you need to be backable. So you need to have a vision and a plan, and you need to be confident with it. And ultimately, that's how you're going to get.
And I think
the
a
backing.
lot of it comes down to belief, doesn't it? And belief in yourself. And along with knowing the numbers, that's a massive part. But if you believe in yourself and believe it's going to happen, you'll make it happen.
Yeah.
If you force yourself to and force yourself to power on. But no, that's really good. So have you seen the market change at all then since you started out? Have you seen many changes to the market, Teesside, County Durham?
Yeah, so when we started, so like I said, the first flip was in Darlington, but then the portfolio built from buy-to-lets in Teesside, specifically like Middlesbrough and Stockton area. And when we seen that massive price increase, probably maybe a year or so after COVID.
Just after we come out of COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah,
To be fair,
so we seen that big price
crazy.
increase. We then started to move further up north to go in places like County Durham.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the shift. And then, so we've had to go further up north to pick up cheaper properties to keep the yields
Keep the returns
attractive.
Yeah.
But now I think with the rents in Teesside, they've increased that much that although the properties have increased, say, 20 grand or 10, 20 grand, say, so the mortgages have went up, but the rents have went up as well to sort of counter that.
I think there was that period of lag, wasn't there? So house prices suddenly went whoop and shot up. Mortgage rates went up, but the rent stayed the same for a little while. But then rents have crept up now to meet the same level, and things that weren't working for a few years are starting to work again because the rents are at the right level. So
yeah, I'm definitely seeing that as well.
Returning to a little bit of normality for us, it makes our lives a bit easier, and we don't have to hunt for those little hotspots where it works, which is good. So, how many deals would you say you've packaged in total then, mate? Have you got a number? Do you track the numbers of how many you've done?
No, to be honest, no, because we done deal sourcing. Of course, we've done deal sourcing. We've packaged maybe, I don't know, say 100 properties for argument's sake. But I never got that to a point where it was like a proper trackable business because I was so heavily involved with the lettings.
Of course, you're very hands-on and
we
doing
doubled
everything.
our management size twice, and I was so heavily involved in that I never spent as much time on the deal packaging that I would have liked to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got you. Great stuff. And is there a deal that stands out to you as the most challenging? Is there a particular deal you think that one was an absolute nightmare, and how did you get around it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably a HMO that we've done.
Oh, wow.
In
Terrify me, HMOs.
So we co-sourced on a HMO, and the price of the HMO. Well, the guys who we co-sourced with were going to do the refurb, but it was with my investor, which was fine.
Yeah.
But what the challenge was is that the refurb quote increased a couple of days before, and that didn't sit right with. I didn't want to provide that client to the I didn't want to pass that on to the client.
Yeah.
And it was no fault to the co-sourcers, to be fair. I think materials had went up and stuff like that. But when I've always done refurbs, the client have always honoured the price.
Yeah. And sometimes you've got to take that bit of a hit, haven't you, to keep your client right? But they're buying it based on your numbers and
So. And this is nothing against the lads who we co-sourced with. I understand why they did it. They weren't trying to have us over or pull a fast one. It was generally, the cost has increased. Yeah, so...
It happens.
We jumped in on that, basically. I just employed my dad, actually, to come in and be like a maintenance project manager. So he ended up running that project, but it was difficult because we'd only been doing buy-to-lets at that point. We'd never put en suites in.
It's an eye-opener, isn't it?
It's a totally different ball game.
When you're looking at the planning for the drainage, that sort of thing on the HMO,
we'd never
we'd never think of these things.
No,
when you walk into a finished one.
Yeah,
it never crosses your mind of the thought that goes into getting that drainage to run right, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we'd never done drainage. We'd never done any structural work. We hadn't had building control in on anything. We'd never took chimney breasts out. So it was a huge learning curve. Yeah.
And sometimes the easiest way to learn, though, is being chucked in at the deep end and having to get on with something, isn't
100%. Have you done much HMOs?
We've done a couple, to be fair. So we manage about 10 HMOs now. And it was purely accidental. The acquisition we've just done brought them to us. Now, it's been on our radar for probably about 18 months that we wanted to go into HMO management. This has just gave us a kick up the backside now to say we've got to get on with it and got to do it. Yeah. But the demand we're seeing from investors that want HMOs is so strong. Yeah. It's kind of like we can't not offer it as a service.
From a packaging side of things.
From a packaging side of things. And then obviously if we're going to package it, we want to be able to manage it on the other end.
Of course,
that's kind of on our plan as the next service to add, really, is HMO. We've assisted in a couple of refurbs. So obviously we had a maintenance company around COVID sort of time, which we don't have anymore because it was taking too much time up.
Yeah, it does.
But we kind of helped a couple of investors with HMO refurbs at that point, and like you say, completely different to
isn't it? Yeah.
your straightforward single let stuff.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like the drainage and the building control sign off that's just completely new, and you think this is hard work.
Yeah.
But, a lot of learning to do for us before we dive into it, I think, from our
Yeah.
side, but we are going to push it.
Have you got any areas that
We're looking from the HMO perspective more towards Durham, to be fair. So we've got the branch in Durham now, which helps massively. We're going to look around Durham, and then potentially
city centre, you mean?
City centres,
Yeah.
yeah. So Durham city centre or outskirts of, and we're also going to push Newcastle, Sunderland from the
Nice.
HMO side of things as
Yeah,
well,
that's
because
smart,
we can pick them up from Durham as well.
Yeah, I think that's smart.
I think based on my market research and what I've looked at, Darlington's at the point now it's getting very saturated.
I think Middlesbrough as well. to be
Teesside
honest.
is just having a HMO exodus at the moment. I think everyone wants to sell them,
Yeah.
and it comes back to that thing of sourcing them for them on these streets that should never have been HMOs in the first place, and
Yeah.
then suddenly every house becomes one.
Yeah.
Oversaturated, problems, and people want out.
But what's happened with Teesside Uni as well? I don't know if you know the. Obviously, that's the hotspot for HMOs,
Yeah, yeah.
Teesside Uni, but they've had the funding cut for the international students, so they've seen a
right.
decrease in student numbers at around say 20%,
Which is then
which
a
is like
decrease
tens
in the
of thousands of students that are not coming into the area.
So that's then decreased the supply of tenants, which
Exactly.
is leading to voids. And
That's probably why people are looking
That's
to
probably
sell.
why so many are looking to sell up.
Yeah.
It's one of those you kind of think you see them all coming on the market every day, and you rub your hands together and think, "Oh, there's a deal for us." And so, well, why are they selling? If the HMO's working that well, why are they selling it? And you've got to kind of sense check it in that way sometimes, haven't you, before you dive in?
Yeah, they're attractive on the face of things, aren't they?
Numbers look
You know,
great. Numbers always look amazing on them, don't they?
Yeah.
It's knowing the areas sometimes as well. There's
Yeah.
certain ones in Hartlepool you look at and think you're just going to have antisocial behaviour, broken windows, and not get any rent. What's the
Yeah.
point?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's getting that balance.
It is, mate.
What would you say is the best deal you've ever done? Have you got a deal that stands out as the best? Whether it's from a simplicity point of view or from a returns point of view?
So the property deal or business deal?
Property deal or business? Property deal, really?
Yeah, property deal.
Property deal is what I was aiming
Yeah,
for, but it's
yeah.
a business deal that's better, mate.
Yeah, because you know what, Liam, I tend, I know I've sort of done property businesses, but I
Yeah.
like to class myself as more of a businessman rather than
Yeah,
a property man, to be
person.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got you.
But so I'll give you. I think property wise was probably that very first flip. I think.
Yeah.
The model we then adopted for sourcing was pretty much turnkey buy-to-lets,
Okay.
high
Yeah.
yield, simple, nice turnover.
No refurb headache.
No refurb headache. But in terms of a business deal, I acquired a portfolio in a management portfolio in County Durham, and how it come about was the business was for sale on a broker's website. I inquired, spoke to the lady who owned it. I put a price in. She walked away from the price. She come back to me a year later,
Yeah.
and we ended up agreeing a deal at a fraction of the price. So what the deal was is I would buy it off them for £150 per property. They would say
Wow.
50, but I charged the landlords £150 setup fee.
Nice.
So I'd acquired 50 properties for free, and then
Yeah.
I ended up selling most of them for about $3 to $4 each.
Wow. I like
So that was like a no money
I like
down
that.
deal.
Yeah.
And then but we sold them to our existing clients
Onto new terms.
under new terms,
where
and
they're
then
more
when we
profitable.
sold the business on the back end,
Yeah.
you know,
You've added so much value
they
to
were
that,
already
isn't
in there. So
Yeah.
that was probably a pushing way past 100 grand sort of
it?
deal.
Yeah,
That
absolutely. You get infinite ROI as well on that, really,
Exactly,
isn't it? It's
yeah.
paid for itself.
Yeah, so I'm pleased with that.
I want one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice.
Let me know where I find one. I'll actually one of them
Yeah.
tomorrow. So that's really interesting. Definitely looking for one of them type of deals. That's the next step for me, I think. So obviously you built the agency up over a few years. You got to the point where you had a number of properties under management. You had the deal sourcing going really well. What prompted the sale of the agency then? What kind of brought you to that point where you thought, actually, do you know what? I am going to sell up. And
To be totally real with you, Liam, it sounds great, but it was so difficult. You know, I was being let down by staff. I was being dragged into the operations, and like I say, I don't see myself as a property person, quote unquote. I definitely don't see myself as a letting agent or a project manager or a maintenance manager. I see myself as a businessman, and like I say, you imagine structuring that 6-figure deal, but then another sort of, then the day after I'm having to go and jump in and do an inspection, which costs, I can get it done for like 30 or 40 quid because a member of staff has let me down.
Not turned in.
So I'm thinking like, I love the entrepreneurial business, doing like deals and stuff on a bigger level,
the larger, juicier stuff.
And this was just dragging me back to operations, and I didn't like it. And you're providing it. I'm talking bad about letting to you,
but don't
worry, mate. You're right. The way I seen it was, I'm providing a service to a landlord who's not going to be happy no matter what I do, because something's went wrong in his house.
Yeah.
So no matter what I do, he's either going to have to pay for it. You know where I'm coming from, don't you?
I feel your pain. I feel your pain. Yeah. Sometimes.
So it's like, look, I've spent like 3 years building this. It's worth a little bit of money. It's worth some money. Do I sell it and put all my efforts? Because it took a huge amount of effort to get to that point. Dedication.
It's not easy.
So I'm like, if I put the same amount of effort into a better business model.
Yeah.
I'm going to have bigger rewards and it's going to be more enjoyable. So that's what prompted the sale, really.
Definitely. And I think that's it. When you're looking at a letting agency, the tight margins, there's a lot of minutiae, and unless you can get it to run itself and systemize that, then you'll be forever on the tools, won't you? So it's about
so that's what
bigger and better things. And
I
get you, mate. That sounds really good. So what kind of told you, what gave you the gut feeling that it was the right time then? What made you decide, now's the time, now I'm going to sell? Was it when you saw the price on paper and thought, God, that's good? Or was it something else?
I'd made my mind up before that. I had trouble integrating the two acquisitions, so it was always on my mind. But I can pinpoint one moment. So my lettings manager was supposed to be meeting a landlord who was coming up from London.
Okay.
They called in sick on the morning, so I was like, fair enough. Could you just I didn't know what their schedule was like. I was just like, if you've got any meetings, can you just let them know?
Yeah.
Anyway, they didn't.
Oh,
and landlord, it was one of our windiest landlords as well.
You get them. Yeah.
They come up from London, and they're like, no one's here. I haven't been told that.
Yeah.
So and so is not coming into work.
Yeah.
I got an absolute grilling. And
as you would.
And then I go to the property, they're just grilling me. I'm just thinking, I just don't need this. Like, it's totally out of my control. Like,
I've done everything I possibly could have to try and prevent this.
Yeah.
And
so
someone else has let you down.
That night, I got on the phone to my business partner and was like, we're selling this.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't think it's the right time. I was like, mate, I'm done. Yeah, I'm out. Yeah.
I'm out.
So we started speaking to people, and that was a good process, to be fair, speaking to people.
I wish we'd have known at the time. We'd have jumped in.
Yeah, I know. I was getting wined and dined, let's say.
I'm sure, absolutely.
And one of the people put an offer forward, which was a brilliant offer, and then I used that to negotiate with another company.
Yeah, as you do, yeah.
And they just matched the cash amount but beat the terms, so it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, so it's
at
a
that point.
win-win then, isn't it? Yeah.
And but I had in the back of my mind that that my portfolio was going to a more established agency. So it just seemed like a win-win all round.
Yeah, so it worked for everyone.
So I seen it. Yeah,
and that's it. If it's a win-win, then it makes sense, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah.
No, it's really good. So, kind of where you're at now, then. So you've started the training for property investors, deal packages, that sort of thing. So what kind of inspired you to go down the training route? What brought you to that?
So I think, firstly, it's a better model.
Yeah.
And it was also so when I'd sold the agency, the plan was to focus on deal sourcing.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, how can I build up a network of deal sources
to work with,
do deals with? Okay, I'll do a training arm of it, and then the people who I train and mentor can then come. And I can train them. I can earn money from the initial cost of that
training,
and then we can do deals together as well.
Yeah, perfect. It's a really great business model, isn't it? Because you're kind of bringing people in as they're paying to be trained, but then they almost become a partner agent,
The partner,
don't they,
exactly,
to
yeah.
work with. And
Yeah. But I think,
it's that ongoing kind of.
Yeah, it's again that comes with its challenges in terms of the business, and I think what the most frustrating part of that is that people would pay to work with me, but then not implement any advice, and I think I took that quite to heart, because it's like, you pay me this money, this is what you need to do, and they're not doing it, and they're not getting the results. So it's like,
And you kind of feel it's a reflection on the training you're delivering, don't you? But
Yeah.
it's not. You're delivering the right content.
yeah.
You're telling them, but unless someone's going to take action and put that into play,
Yeah.
you can lead a horse to water, can't you? You
Yeah,
can't,
especially with the
can't
first
make
thing.
it drink.
Like, so I say, we start with social media. And it's the big sign is just total resistance to like do that, and it's like, okay, well, show up to the weekly calls. They don't show up to the weekly calls, and it's like, well, other than me like sitting down, like I'm gonna go to the house, sit down with them, tell them, it's just
and do the social media posts for them and so forth, and it's crazy. I think if you're going to be in this game, social media is massive. You've got to do it. You can't not do it, can you?
Yeah.
We've said already it's how important it is.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of common knowledge gaps that you see with people that you train or mentor? So is there anything that's common that you're dealing with?
Yeah, I think a massive one is getting people to understand what sourcing is. Mm-hmm. Because people think it's about finding unicorn deals.
Yes.
But the way I've had success with sourcing is providing value to the investor's journey rather than the actual unicorn deal itself.
I think it's the time, the location, the knowledge of what to buy, what not to buy, isn't it? That sort of thing.
And when someone comes and wants to be a deal sourcer, but they're coming at it from an investment mindset, they can't get the head around how they could sell a deal based on say 10-11% yield, because they wouldn't buy it. Yeah. So one thing I would always say, so the questions that I would get asked was like, I'm looking for a deal, or something, what would they say? Like, I'm looking for a deal, and I would ask them, well, what deal are you looking for? And then they'd be like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, because you need to get the investor first. That's what I'm getting at. Like,
yeah, definitely. You've got to know what type of deals you're finding and who you're selling them to, and what they're looking for, don't you? It's all good and well going out and finding a ton of flips, but if your investors don't want flips and they want something to put the cash into and get over a longer period of time, flips aren't the way forward, are they?
Yeah, so for me, it was always to like find the investor. So put the work in to find the investor, and do that by creating good content and having good conversations and building good relationships. And only at that point, really, should you then start going out and
finding deals
and actually find a deal. But people, for some reason, can't get their head around that.
No, and I think it's the fun part, though, isn't it? Everyone wants to run out and view properties. No one wants to post on social media, though. That's the difference. Yeah. But you've got to do both, I think. But you've got to start with building that brand, letting people know who you are and what you're doing before you're able to do too much.
What do you think's been the biggest thing that's just made you, like, your thing click?
We got a leg up. We had an agency there already with landlords, and there was a mixture of landlords that wanted to buy and build the portfolios and a mixture of landlords that wanted to sell. So our first couple of months was really focused around them and selling the ones that wanted to sell to the ones that wanted to buy, and it was all kind of in-house. From there, it was kind of like, oh, crap, we've generated this income from doing that, but what's next? Where does the next step come from? And I think at that point, it was kind of, well, what do we do? And that's when we started ploughing social media in the way that we do. And we've been probably consistent with being quite heavy on social media now for 10 months, 11 months, the best part of a year. And it's paying rewards. I'll get 2 or 3 messages a day from people wanting to speak to me about potential investment opportunities. Sometimes they're complete duds that don't go any further, they never come back to you. Sometimes you get a really good quality investor that you go on to do multiple deals with. I think it's social media and consistency is what's done it. And I think that's probably the one bit of advice I'd give to anyone wanting to get in the game. Social media, be consistent and keep doing it. Yeah. And I think everyone says the same, don't they? I think it's all very similar. Anyone who's done well out of property sourcing has done it in the main through the same routes. Social media, consistency, and just delivering what they do on a consistent basis.
So, them investors' messages, are you planning on putting them through the funnels, or are you planning on changing the way that you...
So the plan is moving forward. I mean, if someone directly messages me in future, then I would always reply to it. I'd never just fire that into a funnel, because I think it takes that personal touch out the way. Obviously, there's a lot coming in place over the coming weeks with our funnels that will be pulling the leads in and so forth for investors. But I wouldn't recommend that sort of stuff to someone starting out because
No,
there's
exactly.
an awful lot
Yes,
goes into it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they want fancy CRM systems.
Yeah.
You know,
They want to get a professional website
Yeah,
designed, have
yeah.
a brand, have a media team. It's
Yeah.
like walk before you can run. And
100%.
sometimes as a new deal sourcer starting out, just having that
Yeah,
company name, the basic logo,
yeah,
and defining your service offering
yeah.
is the first step, isn't it?
They want like fancy softwares as well on how to find
Yeah.
deals and all this carry on. It's like
Yeah.
it's not like that. You know, it comes off the back of building proper relationships.
It does.
And that's that's actually the hard work.
Yes. It's
Because
where the groundwork
once
goes
you
in.
find the right type of buyer, the putting the deals together then becomes the easier part, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Absolutely. Absolutely. So your kind of training programs then, what's kind of the key areas that you focus on with that? Is it more tailored towards the deal packages? Do you do stuff directly for investors, or is it just...
Yeah, so it's probably changed a little bit from when I first started because I wanted to run it as my main business, but
Yeah.
it's not my main business. It's just a
Yeah,
feeder
it's just
into the. It's a feeder basically. So yeah, to investors and sources at the moment. So it's
Yeah.
like what the idea is like, look, you can become. So basically, everyone needs to build a portfolio. You need to be able to analyze deals, to be
Yeah.
able to raise finance, whether that be
Yeah.
to build your own portfolio or to
build someone else's.
to build someone else's as a
Yeah.
sourcer. So yeah, so we're teaching them things, and then ideally, then they would do deals with us off the back of it.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's it. And I think the beauty of being a deal sourcer is you have the opportunity to keep the best deals for yourself. So you talked about unicorn deals a moment ago. If I find a unicorn, all money out, BRR, it's not going to the investor list. It's,
Yeah.
it's getting bought
Yeah.
myself. I'll
Yeah.
find the funds somewhere
Yeah.
to buy it and do it myself.
Yeah.
We'll raise finance because you do. The best deals, you can keep them. And that's
Yeah.
the beauty of doing what
I think
you do.
just on the training side as well, like there's some big players in the game, isn't there?
There is.
And there's some people way million times more qualified than me. So I would never either class myself as a trainer really either. Yeah.
But I think the difference is when you look at kind of what you do in the training world compared to some of the larger players.
There's like a sausage factory, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is. It's a sausage machine, and they charge a lot of money to feed people through and out the
Yeah.
other end, and not really
running
have
ads and
yeah, and there's not a massive amount of value added, and the entry cost to that is probably 3 or 4 times what you're charging. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Whereas yours is a much lower barrier to entry, a much more personal service, with a lot more value added as
Yeah,
well. So
yeah.
it depends on what people prefer. Some
Yeah.
people will always naturally attract themselves to the larger brands. Some would prefer that more personal service as well, wouldn't they? And
Yeah, I think the
it's horses for
education space
courses.
is actually going in the right direction because I've seen some what I call them like independent mentors
Yes.
coming up. People who've
Yeah,
been
yeah.
doing the do for 5 or 6 years, and now
Yeah.
they're doing some mentoring on the
now
side.
jumping in to help people.
But they've
with
still got
real
that
life.
trading business running.
Yeah.
And I think that's much better than joining a big, large academy, although the big, large academies have insane networks
Well,
where
yeah.
the value comes from the network and not the education
And I
or,
think that's
or
often-
that hand-holding. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's often what you're paying for there, isn't it? The network and the access to the people within the network rather than the actual education
Content,
itself
yeah.
and the content itself.
Yeah.
You got any success stories from the trainers? Have you got any individual mentees that have really shone? Obviously, I'm not asking you to name them. But is there any...
So people who've done what I've said do
Yeah.
have done deals, you know, focus on social media.
It's mad that, isn't it?
Yeah.
You tell them to do what they're trained and it produces results.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Focus on social media, like go heavy on social media, build relationships and do deals. Yeah. So one of the first ones I'd done was good. It worked perfectly. So the guy found he found the deal on social media. He come to me. Did I have a buyer? I put him in touch with a buyer, and we all made $2,000 each.
Winner.
So yeah.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Everyone eats from it. Everyone does well, and it gets people going.
Yeah, exactly.
No, really good. Sounds great. So, most recent kind of venture then. So, just become a director at Town and Country Property Auctions. It's Town and Country, isn't it? Have I got
Town and
that
Country
right?
Property Auctions. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, how did that come about?
So that was a big attraction to me. So when I'd sold my letting agency earlier in the year, I become a dad, so I had a little bit of time off.
Yeah.
And I was just ticking over, doing some sourcing, doing some mentoring, but it was very much as a one-man band operation. I'd went from having staff, having a headache, to just then having a new baby and just be like, look, I don't want any staff for the time being. Let me just take over.
Yeah.
But I got to the point where it was like, I need to scratch the itch now, and obviously,
Have something
yeah,
bit more.
have something a bit more,
Yeah.
you know, bigger, let's say. And when you're a one-man band, although things are simpler,
Quite lonely.
It's lonely
Yeah.
for sure. But you're also doing everything. You're doing the
Yes.
bookkeeping, you're doing
Yeah.
the sales progression,
Yeah.
or just on a smaller scale.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm just not operational. You know,
Yeah.
I'm very much a big picture thinker.
Yeah.
I'm a deal maker. And this is what Town and Country opportunity provided. You know, we've
Yeah.
got a team of 9.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
It's
so
yeah.
it's a good size operation. Got people in there as well who are better than me at certain things. So I can actually learn from them as well.
It's always part of a team, though, isn't it? You've always got people that have strengths in certain
100%,
areas
yeah.
where you're weaker. Yeah.
Yeah, which I've never really had that before either, to be honest. So that was an attraction. So now I can just focus on, you know, the bigger picture stuff for Town and Country.
Amazing. No, that sounds really good. And what does that mean for investors then? What's the opportunity for investors there with that, and what makes auction routes so exciting for them?
Yeah. So when I saw the letting agency, I vowed never to go back into the property industry.
Okay. Yeah.
So
And here we are.
So here we are. It's pulled me back in. But the reason why I like this model, I would never do a traditional estate agent.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the business model. Would never do a letting agency for obvious reasons that we spoke about. And I wanted to sort of move away from sourcing as well, just maybe because of the reputation that I had.
Yeah.
And because it was so sort of low barrier to entry.
Yeah.
So what the auction route offers is, to boil it down, it's a fast, it's a secure property transaction process. So it's more like a tool, let's say. Because you'll know yourself, you know, once you've got a deal in legal, I've got a deal in legals now, which has been in legals for over a year.
Wow. Yeah, I've got stuff in legals from January this year still.
So that's like, you need best part of a year where the auction route, the modern method of auction, you know, you're getting stuff through in 28 days time, and really that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And I
nice
really
and
like
quick.
that business model, and I like, you know, the fees charges on the front end are nice. You can still source properties, but you can charge more for it because
Yeah.
you've got that auction reputation and that auction
absolutely.
brand.
Yeah.
And I think investors are less likely to mess you about because you are more corporate-y,
Yeah, of
let's
course.
say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really like that, the brand around it. But for investors, what it means is, you know, we can do deals quickly, you know, and I'm not talking about getting something agreed, because anyone can get
anyone could agree something quickly.
It's about getting it through.
Conveyancing. Yeah.
So it's about getting cash in the bank if you're selling, or it's about getting the keys in your hand within just
You're
28
buying,
days. Yeah.
I think that's a winner for someone who's there wanting to deploy cash into an asset and get it returning. What better than to have it through in 28 days guaranteed? It's
You'll know yourself, Liam, like when you're agreeing a sale, that's normally done within 24 to 48 hours.
it is.
But by the time it actually completes, you can be looking at six months plus.
Months plus, yeah, absolutely. I think the fastest I've ever got one through is 6 weeks, but again, opportunity with the auction there, 28 days, even quicker than that.
Exactly.
And that 6 weeks was a really straightforward one, cash purchase, no survey, no searches, that sort of thing. It was the dream sale, really. But yeah.
So just to sum that up, I guess, I liked the business model because it is different to a traditional agency, and also the opportunity and the deal on the back end with getting involved with the guys, you know, non-operational and stuff like that. That's why I went into it. Yeah,
amazing. No, sounds really good. And do you see auctions kind of changing the market in the coming years? Do you see them becoming more popular, or how do you see that fitting in over the next few years to the property market?
That's a good question. What do you think?
Oh, you bounced that one back well. I think with kind of times becoming a little bit more uncertain in terms of kind of cost of living, that sort of thing, then the need for secure transactions is always going to be there. If you look at kind of average fall through rates, it's 1 in 3 sales fall through in the UK at the moment. So for those going via an open market, paying no commitment up front, that sort of thing. For a seller, if you're basing your onward move and your future plans, employment, family, everything else around that sale happening, it's very, very uncertain. So a buyer can pull out at any time with very little penalty. Auction route, the buyer pays a commitment fee up front. They pay the reservation fee up front. That's non-refundable if they mess around. There's guaranteed timescales, much more certainty. So I see that really coming into play and becoming more and more popular over the years, because it takes an old sale system and process that's very unsure, very uncertain and very slow moving, and offers now an option to have it with much more rigid timescales and much more kind of certainty and surety that sale's going to go through. So I do see them coming a much bigger part of the market.
Yeah, I think it's a broken old system, isn't it?
Yeah.
That just doesn't really work. Everyone's frustrated with it, from the solicitors to the agents to the buyers and the sellers. So I think, it just makes total sense to me.
It does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, makes a lot of sense. So, looking ahead, Matty, what's next for you? So obviously we've got Town City stuff happening. We're going to be building on that. Is there anything else in the pipeline? Any other exciting projects on the horizon that you're thinking about?
Yeah, like I say, Liam, I see myself as a businessman first and foremost.
Yeah.
So I would like to. I've got a couple of deals in the pipeline, more around the mergers and acquisitions space.
Okay.
But the thing is, I've got to be able to go into that business and not necessarily understand it operationally, but be able to add value through it.
Yeah, of course.
And I'd be adding value to the business by further acquisitions.
Yeah.
And also around digitalising the business as well.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people now who, baby boomers, who have built amazing businesses.
Yeah.
But they've never utilised social media marketing.
No, they're not with the times. They're stuck in the ways.
Yeah, so I see a massive opportunity with that.
The value that can bring is huge, isn't it? The value that can bring and add to a business is massive.
So that's where I see my future really being in mergers with and acquisitions, buying and building and selling businesses.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Exciting. Can't wait to see what happens, mate.
Yeah,
Sounds really good.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It obviously sounds great. It's obviously like everything else. It's not easy.
Nothing is. Nothing is. So is it?
Yeah, it's like I feel like I've got to level up in every aspect of getting out my comfort zone, beating imposter syndrome again.
Yeah.
The mindset shift. The skills as well. The people who I'm talking to. Bringing people into my circle like business brokers. Proper good accountants as well, not just someone who's
running the mill that can do a
self-assessment. So it's exciting, but it's definitely a journey.
But I think if one thing your journey so far has shown, mate, is that you are a go-getter, you're an action taker, and I think being an action taker, being a go-getter, I think you're on a path to succeed there from the offset. So really look forward to seeing what happens. So if any of our listeners did want to get in touch with you about any kind of business opportunities, the training, anything at all, how would they contact you, mate? Where would they find you?
On Instagram, Matt Older, and I think it's _. Facebook is Matty Older. Our business email is matt@macapital.co.uk.
Amazing. Great stuff. Well, Matty, thanks so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. Thank you very much for your time. And I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Top man.
And for our listeners there, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been great to host the Property Let's Talk podcast once again. Please do remember to subscribe to the podcast to make sure you never miss an episode. And you can find us on all social media. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, and all the rest. Thank you very much for joining today. And until next time, happy investing.